so much for taking the time today to talk to me.
Thank you.
I want to start with your honesty in your songs, because I feel like that's very distinctive in your music. Do you find it easy to be so vulnerable in your music, or do you have to step out of your comfort zone every time?
I find it very easy, but I think that it's a give and take in life, because I find it very difficult in real life.
Yeah.
So when I'm speaking to someone that I'm connected to, relationships that I have in my life, or like friends or whoever, family, and it's an emotionally thick conversation, I struggle, and I feel like my tongue is too big for my mouth, and the emotions just, you know, they kind of overpower. But when it comes to music, it's almost like there's this added fluidity, this added viscosity that allows for everything you said, for the honesty, for the directness, for the curtness, for the conciseness, for the potency. It allows for all those things when music's involved, which is fucked, because you'd think that I could take a little bit of that to when I'm acting out. In my real life, but it doesn't work that way.
Did it happen to you that like maybe you wrote a lyric out of an impulse or a feeling, and afterwards you like regretted saying that stuff in a song, or did that never happen?
No, never, because it's been a reflection of my truth at the moment. Even if I change, and even if I grow after the fact, it's not like I was lying. It was the reflection of my truth in the moment that I made it.
Yeah, and I feel like your honesty is a quality that your fans really love about you. Do you think it's rather a taboo in the current like pop music world, or do you feel like it's already changing?
What's taboo? To be honest?
Yeah, like to be like really raw and honest in your lyrics.
I feel like there's a lot of honest artists. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of honest artists, but that can also be a reflection of like the echo chamber that I'm in and what I listen to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you gravitate towards what you resonate with. So if you're gravitating towards a lot of fake shit, that's maybe a reflection of you. If you think that, you know, people say that. People are like, music fucking sucks nowadays, or they list off genres and say this genre sucks. Like, I don't think that that's fair. It's just what you're taking in. Yeah, what your choices are. So no, I don't think. I think there's a lot of honest artists out there. I don't think that I'm that much of an exception. I just think I belong to a family where people are honest in their music.
I mean, of course, I listened to Jessie a lot before the interview, and I really liked it.
Thank you.
And in the song Mood, you sing, I even gotta thank Mother Mary for the pain, cause the kid about to make another hit from the sadness.
Yeah.
I love that lyric.
Thanks.
So I was wondering, do you feel like you need the negative emotions to create a good song? Like, for example, Adele said that she can only write music when she's sad. Or can you also write songs from a positive mindset?
I can write songs from a positive mindset, but I don't think they're as good. And I think there is few and far in between comparatively to like how often I write sad music. And also because I write a lot and I make a lot of music. So sometimes the quality that I'm able to pull comes from having the quantity that I first deal with. So by default, because it's more natural for me to make sad music, because when I'm sad I want to get the emotion out, by default I have more quantity, and then by default I can have more quality when I pull out. But because I don't have that natural instinct when I'm happy, because when I'm happy I like to be in the emotion, I don't feel reactive. There's not as many happy songs.
You don't have to cope with it like through art and music, because you're just happy and in the moment, living it.
Yeah, so there's not as, I still do it, but I don't think I'm as good at it. I think I'm just, I don't think I'm as good. And then also what I said, it's just, I don't do it as often. So the amount that I make, I just don't have as wide of a selection to choose the quality from as I do when it comes to the songs that come from a darker place.
Yeah, many of your songs deal with, I don't know, ex-partners and toxic relationships and anger. Not all of them, of course. Don't take it the wrong way. But I was just thinking, if you're thinking a lot about these kind of things, how do you still get to a positive place? Like, how does your past trauma just not consume you? Like,
it used to.
Yeah?
Yeah, it used to. I was in a dark place. But I work for growth. I work towards growth, and I don't drink as much as I used to, nearly as much as I used to. I work out a lot more. I meditate. I go to yoga. I do affirmations.
That's
I pray.
cool.
I put in work to get better and to heal. And I know healing's not linear, and I don't expect to ever be fully cured because that's not the nature of life. But I'm working on it. So.
Yeah, in the album Jessie, you said in an interview that it's about healing in a way. What did you have to heal from? Like, what was bothering you?
Shit, girl, you listed it. Toxic partners, relationships, negativity, darkness, all of that shit. All of that shit. Also, like, just self-loathing that I was dealing with, too. I didn't understand the practice of giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
the judge in my head was very, very loud, and I needed to make her my friend, and I feel like I finally did.
Yeah.
Again, it's not linear, and some days are more difficult than others.
Of course, yeah.
Some mistakes are harder to swallow, so sometimes some days are difficult to look in the mirror still, but luckily those days aren't as prevalent.
In the song Only One, you start the song with the words, "Don't call me when you got time, call me when you're busy, so I know I'm a priority," which I also love, because it's so empowering in a way. But have you always known how to prioritize yourself? Or like, how did you learn to draw boundaries with someone?
By fucking up, by not having any boundaries and getting hurt, failing faster. Otherwise I wouldn't have known. I had to just fuck up and fail and be hurt and be bruised up, have my ego bruised up. I kind of hit rock bottom in the beginning of the pandemic. I was just in a really dark place, and I started reading more, and I found this book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I recommend to everybody.
I love that book.
It's so good. That book shifted a lot for me, and it made me more aware of presence, and then what I said earlier, more aware of the voice inside my head, more aware of showing myself grace, and setting boundaries, and understanding that I don't have to feel negative or guilty about saying no, and that sometimes no is a full sentence, and it's fine, and as long as I'm being fair and respectful and coming from a place of love, then I don't really have anything to carry. You know, the weight just becomes lighter. So I've learned, but it took me all that. It took me a lot of failures to understand how to prioritize myself.
Yeah, I think everyone's that way, probably.
Yeah, for real. Fuck, who's born perfect?
Yeah,
Not me.
And who wants to be perfect? I mean, that's not even the state you want to achieve. I don't know.
No, I think you're right, because then you, for what? Then you die.
Yeah. And I feel like you're not really, you cannot be creative or create art if you're like this perfect human being who's just like happy all the time. I feel like you said, creativity also comes from going through the dark places and getting to another point.
Yeah, I agree. It's not human to be perfect. It's not, life isn't sunny all the time.
Yeah. But because you said you kind of hit rock bottom in the beginning of the pandemic, because when I did my research, like about you, I realized that you had so many career breakthroughs, like up until Corona, and then, I mean, it all came to a halt with the pandemic.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, amazing. But were you worried that you would lose your momentum because you had built so much in these years before, and then you had to stop doing like what you're doing?
I thought about it, but it's also why we went ahead and released the album anyway. I understood that it was going to be a guinea pig. I understood that nobody had really done it, and fuck, the world hadn't really gone through what we all collectively went through. Yeah. I'm happy we did it, but yeah, of course it was a thought that crossed my mind when I was like, well, fuck, there goes that tour, there goes this release, there goes that. But that being said, luckily we were prepared. Like, I had all the videos ready. I had all the, a lot of the bullets in the chamber were locked in from before March 2020 came. So despite being a guinea pig in this new situation, I was also really fortunate to have been prepared, you know, so we took advantage of it as much as I could.
Well, I have to admit that I just like recently discovered you and your music because I went to the Billie Eilish concert.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I saw you live, and it was so cool. And like, I came home and I just Googled you, and I just started listening to your music.
Sick. Shout out Billie.
Yeah. So how was it to be on tour with Billie Eilish? Like, what was that experience like?
Great. Her whole team is great. She's great. Her family's great. I love that they actually, like, they are more than just musicians, you know? They're trying to save the planet, trying to be environmentally conscious, and spread that awareness, and I think that that's beautiful. It's always a little daunting to be an opener because you're walking into a room that's not there to see you, and you're just an impediment for the audience.
How is that, like that feeling? Just not knowing if people are going to like you or not because they're not here for you, but they still want to listen to your music? I mean... It's
a mountain, but it feels good to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
It feels good to be at the top, you know? It's just a matter of how to approach the challenge. So I approach it smiling, like I approach it hungry. So it makes me a better artist, you know? It's like sharpening my knife every time I'm on stage.
Yeah.
When people aren't there for me, because you have to win people over.
Yeah, of course you do. You had so many great features, like with, I don't know, you collaborated on the Beyonce album, and you did a song with 70 Shake and Eminem. Like, do you have a feature you would really love to realize in the future? Like a musician you would love to work with?
Yeah, Frank Ocean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
It'd be fucked.
Yeah.
It'd be fucked. But they also say don't...
Have you met him? Like?
Meet your heroes. I was about to say that. No, I've been to concerts and I've seen him, but it was almost like I froze in reverence.
Yeah.
Like, he was where you're standing, and I was like, I can't do it. can't. I froze in reverence. I froze in musical reverence, and things happen how they're supposed to happen. So if we're meant to, then we will, and if we're not meant to, then we won't.
And about the title from your new album, YESSIE, why did you choose that title? Is it like a mantra of self-affirmation, or what was the reason for the title?
The original project was going to be called, the original title, it was going to be Self, but it felt so general. And then I had one of my boys, Jeremiah Thomas, give me a ring for my birthday that said YESSIE. And it kind of made sense. It made everything feel a lot more intimate. And I was like, oh, this is fitting. This feels good. This feels... There was just a level of familiarity to it. And Self was so general, and I've never written music for other people. I've always very much made it for myself. And then people reacting and connecting to it has always been a positive, unintentional byproduct. So it felt right to make it something more intimate.
In your songs, you switch between English and Spanish sometimes, and I was wondering, what's the difference between writing in Spanish and writing in English?
Yeah, no, it feels different. It feels more intimate by default because Spanish was my first language. Spanish is the language with which I learned to love. It's the language with which I first connected to people.
Yeah.
So when I sing in English, it still feels very intimate because my songs are always by nature naked in a sense. So I feel open, but when I sing in Spanish, it's almost like everybody in the room took 2 steps closer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somehow it's more intimate. Somehow it's more connected to my formative years. So there's this level of closeness that's not really as present when it's English.
You grew up in Canada, right?
Grew up in Toronto,
Yeah.
Toronto, Canada.
And
Brampton, Oliver, yes, Canada.
And your parents are Colombian, right?
My family's from Colombia, from
So-
Cali, Colombia.
So how connected did you feel to Canada and Colombia? Like, what was that?
It's
Growing up with 2 countries, 2 languages, like...
I've realized, I've come to understand that it's a very shared experience, especially in Canada, because there's a lot of like kids of immigrants, you know?
Yeah.
And often if you ask a child of an immigrant what it's like, they'll answer and say it feels as though you're living in 2 countries at once, because when you're at home, within the walls of that home, that is your parents' land with your parents' culture and customs and language and societal expectations and rules that you are to abide by. And then as soon as you walk outside and Brittany, Becky, and Michael aren't following the same rules, there's this disconnect, but you just have to fucking cope, and you have to deal, and you have to learn to be this chameleon. And in your younger years, yes, it's fucking difficult. Yes, you might get teased for the differences. Yes, you might not understand why they're allowed to do this and you're not, and why things are different. But what's nice is that through that difficulty, you also develop this thicker skin that I feel like kids of immigrants have. And also, if, unfortunately, there's negative sides to it too, because you have front row seats to fucking racism. You have front row seats to the adversity that your family faces. You have front row seats to seeing your parents work twice as hard to get paid the same amount or less. So having a front row seat to that adversity, I feel like also helps develop that skin, and you can take something positive from that, because you get a example of what it really is to hustle, and hustle with a hindrance, because oftentimes those parents don't even speak the language yet. You know, there's a barrier. So it was interesting, and it was beautiful, and it was difficult all at once.
Yeah. Before you had your big break in music, you worked as a waitress and as a busker for a long time. So I was wondering if that kind of hardworking mindset, like this hustle, what you call it, do you think it helps you now after your success? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, because I still work like I'm broke. And I think
keeps you busy.
Yeah, it keeps me busy. There's a balance between being able to embrace peace and embrace, like, not being afraid of being content, and I struggle with that sometimes. I've struggled with finding balance between ambition and peace.
Are you a perfectionist?
I wouldn't say perfectionist, but I'm definitely like particular. Not perfection, because perfection is a chase that I'm not really interested in, but very particular in what I want and how I want it. So yeah, I struggle with that. But I got that from that ambition, which I love having. I got it from having a front row seat to seeing my parents do it. Currently though, I understand that that's not sustainable. Like, you can't have that your whole life, because you run yourself down. You have to find balance between ambition and peace. So I'm working on that.
Do you feel like you can't be satisfied with what you do? Or can you like pause for a moment and embrace it?
I've learned to pause.
Okay, that's good.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Learning, because it's not always easy. And then sometimes it's too easy, because if you leave me in the woods for long enough, you might not get me back. So this is a forever thing, finding that balance.
The first song I listened to you after I came home from the concert and looked at your Spotify was Gatekeeper. it's still a song I really love, and it describes your experiences with Noel Dieter Fischer, as we all know now because you made it public. How did you feel releasing that song back then?
Well, I was concerned. I was a little bit apprehensive, but not so much for how everyone else was going to receive it. It was more so for how my family was going to receive it. Because at the time that it had happened to me, I hadn't confided in anybody about what had happened. So I was scared that they were going to hear that, my family was going to hear that and then freak out and be like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Why didn't you tell anybody? Why didn't you? What? And I had to sit them down and be like, well, listen, and I gave them a play-by-play by the night and explained to them that the worst case scenario didn't happen. And yeah, and I just had to prep them and explain to them why I was doing what I was doing and all those things. But outside of having those concerns when it came to how my family was going to receive it, I wasn't really concerned about anybody else.
I mean, you took some time before, like, making public who you were singing about.
So but that's so. Releasing a song is one thing. Talking about the identity is another. So
yeah,
talking
of course.
About
that's
the identity,
what I mean.
Yeah, that was
that's
fucking
a huge
scary.
Step, yeah,
it was scary.
You were not only a singer, you're also a songwriter. How does it feel for you if you're writing a song and someone else gets to perform it? Is it difficult to let a song go in that way?
No.
No, it's not?
No, it's not. It's I get happy. I get happy because there's so many songs that exist in my Dropbox. It's fields of dead bodies because there's songs that no one is ever gonna hear. Yeah. You know? And not because I don't want them out, but because of the industry that I'm in, it's not conducive for me to create and release. As much as I want to and as much as I think that that's the natural creative process and the natural creative reflex is to create and release, because of what I do and because of how this shit is monetized, and I'm lucky to be able to be a working artist, but because of that, I have to withhold. So when someone else gets to sing it, it's almost like one of those bodies got revived and it got saved.
Cool.
So I'm happy. It's like watching someone raise someone else from the dead.
That's pretty cool. I love that. How many songs do you write? Like, how frequently do you write songs?
All the time. I don't even have a number for you. I don't have a number for you. But they're not all good. That sounds so, like, there's fucking, some of them are trash, which is why they'll never see the light of day, but a lot. I create a lot.
Thank you so much for taking the time
to
talk to me today.
Sick, thanks.